The knock came just after sunset, three sharp hits that made my stomach drop. When I opened the door, my father stood there, rain dripping from his coat. "You're alone, Maya. No husband, no children. We're taking this house." Behind him, my brother smirked, my mother clutching a box labeled master bedroom. The same family who once threw me out into a storm when I was jobless now wanted everything I'd built. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just looked at them, calm, steady, and reached for my phone. What happened next? None of them ever saw coming. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place where lawns were trimmed on Saturdays and everyone waved, but never really looked. My father, Thomas, worked as a branch manager for an insurance company. He liked order numbers and control. My mother, Linda, was an accountant who lived for appearances, fresh flowers on the counter, matching Christmas pajamas every year, a perfectly curated version of family love. And then there was Jason, my older brother by 3 years, the golden child. Everything he touched was promising. He was the reason my father bragged at barbecues, and my mother smiled for photos. I was different, quieter, more careful. I liked sketching designs on my old Dell laptop, building pretend websites that no one would ever see. I wasn't lazy. I just saw beauty in things that didn't have price tags. At 16, while Jason took summer trips to Myrtle Beach, I stocked shelves at Target, saving every paycheck in a coffee tin labeled college fund. I thought they'd be proud. Every Sunday we had dinner together, roast chicken, green beans, and my father's sermons about success. I still remember the night I told them I wanted to study web design. I'd practiced the sentence all week. "Web design," my father repeated, setting down his fork. "That's not a real career, Maya." My mother laughed softly. "Sweetheart, people like you end up freelancing forever. Study finance. Something practical." Jason snorted. "Better hope Target needs a website." Their laughter filled the room, warm and cruel. I laughed too, pretending it didn't sting, but my hands were trembling under the table. That night I packed away my sketchbook and stared at the glow of my computer screen. I told myself I'd prove them wrong someday. When I turned 18, they bought Jason a brand new Ford Fusion for his birthday. My father tossed me a card with $50 inside. "Get yourself something useful," he said. I used it to buy a used textbook for my design class at the community college. Those first 2 years were brutal. I worked double shifts at a diner and pulled all-nighters studying code. I'd come home to my tiny apartment smelling like burnt coffee and fryer oil, collapse on the couch, and open my laptop again. No one called. No one asked if I was eating. But my grandmother Dorothy did. She lived in a small town across the state line and called every Sunday. "You've got your grandfather's patience," she used to say. "Don't let them shrink you, honey." During summer breaks, while Jason traveled to Cancun with my parents, I spent my days helping Grandma in her garden, painting her fence, fixing her old computer, listening to stories about how she'd built her own house brick by brick after my grandfather died. She was the first person who told me independence wasn't loneliness, it was freedom. I graduated from the state university at 22. No ceremony, no family in the audience, just me holding my diploma in a plastic sleeve outside the registrar's office. That same week, I landed a junior designer job at a small digital agency downtown. My starting salary was nothing impressive, but it was mine. I sent my parents a card that said I got the job and included a photo of my first desk secondhand, cluttered but glowing under a cheap desk lamp. They never replied. Years later, I'd look back at that photo and realize that was the moment I truly left home. Not the night I moved out, but the night I stopped waiting for them to see me. Back then, I still believed family could learn to change. I just didn't know yet how far they'd go to prove me wrong. Jason's success was the family's favorite story to tell, even when it wasn't true. My father kept a framed photo of him shaking hands with some college dean, like proof of his destiny. Every phone call, every holiday card from my parents included his latest achievement. When I got promoted at the agency, I called to share the news. My mother answered distracted. "That's nice, dear. Jason just got accepted into an MBA program." The pride in her voice cut deeper than the words. Jason never called me. When he did text, it was for favors. "Hey, can you fix my resume or design me a logo for my startup?" I helped, hoping maybe it meant something. It didn't. The distance between us grew quietly like dust. No one bothers to clean. During one Christmas visit, my father poured wine and made another toast to Jason. To the one carrying the Thompson legacy forward. Jason grinned. My mother leaned over to him and whispered, "You've always been the one." They thought I didn't hear. I told myself it didn't matter, but every little thing reminded me I was the extra. Jason's room was still a shrine, trophies, photos, medals, all dusted weekly. My childhood room had become a storage closet. My name was barely on the mailbox anymore. I tried harder, thinking effort could buy affection. I sent gifts on birthdays, helped them file their taxes, even drove 3 hours once when their Wi-Fi router broke. No one thanked me. My mother just said Jason would have fixed it faster. At 27, I'd spent 5 years at the same agency. I had experienced stability, but not the validation I still somehow wanted. Then everything collapsed at once. The company went bankrupt overnight. Locked doors, silent phones, no warning. My final paycheck bounced. I told myself it was temporary. I polished my portfolio, applied to every open position, and counted savings. But the months slipped by. Rent came due. My roommate moved out. The apartment felt like an echo chamber. The night before eviction, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes. My laptop glowed with unpaid bills. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my landlord. No one else. That's when I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I called home. "Dad," I started, voice shaking, "I lost my job. I need help, just a loan for rent. I'll pay it back." He sighed, long and tired. "Actions have consequences, Maya. You chose a field with no future." "Please," I whispered. "It's just $2,000. Just until next month." My mother's voice came through, distant but sharp. "We can't help you. We're paying for Jason's MBA. You need to learn responsibility." Then the line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, hearing the rain start outside, soft at first, then harder. I drove to their house that night anyway. The lights were on. My father opened the door just enough for the porch light to hit his face. "Dad, please. Just for a few weeks." "No," he said. "You made your choices. Live with them." My mother appeared behind him. "This isn't a good time, Maya." The door closed. The rain soaked through my coat as I stood there clutching my bag. My breath came out in white clouds, and for a long minute I didn't move. Then I walked back to my car, dripping, shaking, numb. That was the last night I ever called them family. I spent the next week living out of my car behind a Walmart. The heater barely worked, so I wrapped myself in an old blanket and tried to sleep through the hum of delivery trucks. I showered at a gym using a day pass and charged my phone at coffee shops. I told myself it was temporary, but every rejection email made the silence louder. One afternoon at Starbucks, I sat hunched over my laptop applying for jobs I didn't even want. "Maya," a voice said. I looked up. Carla, an old high school friend, stood there, her eyes softening as she took in my appearance. "Are you okay?" she asked. I tried to lie, but my throat closed. Tears came before words. Carla didn't ask again. She just said, "Come with me." Her spare bedroom felt like heaven, a real bed, warm sheets, the smell of coffee drifting in from the kitchen. The next morning, she made calls and got me an interview at her boyfriend's design studio. His name was David. He looked over my portfolio and said, "You've got an eye for detail. Start Monday." It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough. I worked late, skipped lunches, and said yes to every project. After months of humiliation, I finally felt useful again. 2 weeks in, David called me into his office. "You're good at this," he said, smiling. "Let's bump your pay." For the first time in months, I exhaled without guilt. Then the phone rang. "Is this Maya Thompson?" a woman asked. "Your grandmother's neighbor, Margaret. Dorothy's in the hospital. It's serious." The world narrowed. Grandma Dorothy, my only real family, had pneumonia. Carla drove me the 3 hours to the hospital. When I walked into the room, Grandma looked small under white sheets, her voice thin but steady. "You came," she whispered. I tried to call. I said, gripping her hand, "I know." She smiled weakly. "You always try." 3 days later, she handed me a thick envelope from her bedside drawer. Inside, keys, papers. "The cottage. It's yours now." "Grandma, please don't talk like that. I built that home to protect what matters. Now it's your turn." That night she passed away while I held her hand. At the reading of her will, my parents and Jason sat across from me, faces tight. The lawyer read aloud, "To my granddaughter, Maya Thompson, I leave my cottage and savings." The silence that followed was thunderous. My father stood. "Unacceptable. That house should be ours." The lawyer remained calm. "Mrs. Dorothy's wishes are legally binding." My mother snapped. "She manipulated her, my own daughter." I met her eyes. "You never visited her." "I did," Jason muttered. "You don't deserve it." I rose slowly, sliding the keys into my pocket. Grandma thought I did. Then I left the room. By sunset, I stood before the cottage, peeling paint overgrown garden windows clouded with dust. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and whispered to the empty air, "I finally have a home." The cottage needed everything. Paint, plumbing, insulation, but I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I woke up surrounded by silence that was mine. The floors creaked under my feet like an old song. I painted the walls pale cream, planted flowers Grandma loved, and turned the spare bedroom into a workspace. David let me work remotely, and by night, I freelanced for small businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. I slept little, but every morning smelled like coffee and freedom. A year later, I registered my own studio, Horizon Creative. The name came from Grandma's favorite saying, "Keep your eyes on the horizon, not the storm." Clients started coming through word of mouth, a bakery, a bookstore, a small hotel by the lake. I didn't advertise. I didn't need to. Hard work spoke louder than family names ever could. Ryan Anderson walked in on a Wednesday. He owned the bookstore downtown. "I need a rebrand," he said, half smiling. His voice was calm, his handshake firm, the kind of man who looked you in the eye and meant it. I designed his logo, redid his website, and somehow we just never stopped talking. Dinner meetings became real dinners. Months turned into years. I wasn't looking for love, but it found me anyway. By 32, Horizon Creative had 3 employees and steady clients. I worked from the converted garage, Ryan helped in the garden on weekends, and every evening we ate under the old oak tree Grandma planted. My life wasn't flashy, but it was whole. Then one Thursday, my phone buzzed. "Jason." 5 years of silence. Then, "Hey Maya, heard your business is doing great. Would love to reconnect." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Reconnect. That word stung. I answered anyway. "Jason?" "Hey little sis," he said, too cheerful. "We've been thinking about you. Maybe we could visit Mom, Dad, and me. Just for the weekend." My pulse quickened. "Fine," I said. "Saturday. Just a visit." Saturday arrived wrapped in unease. Their car crunched down my gravel driveway. My father stepped out first, smiling too wide. My mother carried store-bought pastries. Jason wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy. They toured the house like buyers inspecting property. "You've done well," my mother said. Tone sweet but sharp. "For someone with no husband or children." "Thank you," I replied flat. Lunch was quiet until my father cleared his throat. "This house is too big for one person. Don't you think it's wasteful?" "What are you suggesting?" "We could move in," he said. "Matter of fact, your mother and I would take the master bedroom. Jason could use the office for his business." I set my fork down. "You can't be serious." Jason leaned back. "We're family, Maya. You owe us some space." "Oh, you." My voice cracked into a laugh. "Like I owed you when I begged for help and you left me in the rain." My father's face tightened. "That was different?" "No," I said. "It wasn't." I stood shaking but steady. "Get out," my mother tried to soften it. "You're being emotional. We just want to help get out." They left with stiff backs and forced smiles, but something in my father's eyes warned me it wasn't over. 3 weeks later, Ryan and I drove to Chicago for a design conference. Second morning there, a text from Margaret Grandma's old neighbor Maya. "There are people at your house. I saw them carrying boxes inside." My chest went cold. I opened the Ring app, my father at the back door, tool in hand, prying the lock. My mother behind him, Jason hauling suitcases. They moved in like they owned the place. I called Jason. "What are you doing?" "We're moving in," he said simply. "This is a family home. You're alone. No husband, no children. You don't need it. You broke in." We have every right. Try to stop us and we'll contest Grandma's will. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. Try me. We drove 4 hours straight home. My home looked different. Curtains drawn, lights on their cars in the driveway. Inside, they'd replaced my photos with theirs. My clothes were shoved into boxes. My father turned from the hallway, calm as stone. You weren't supposed to be back yet, he said. It's done. I looked around slowly, feeling my pulse steady instead of rise. Is it? He folded his arms. We're taking this house. You can't stop us. I smiled just once and reached for my phone. One call, I said quietly. I dialed 911 with a calmness that scared even me. The dispatcher asked what was wrong. My family broke into my house, I said. I have video proof. Within 20 minutes, 2 police cars rolled up the driveway, lights flashing red across the wet pavement. My father stood at the door, pretending to look confused. This is a misunderstanding, he told the officers. We're her family. I stepped forward, phone in hand. Family doesn't use a crowbar, I said, opening the Ring footage. The video played my father prying the lock, Jason hauling boxes, my mother entering behind them. The sound of the latch breaking echoed through the room. The officers' faces hardened. You have 30 minutes to pack your things, one said. If you're not gone by then, you'll be arrested for breaking and entering. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I replied. My voice didn't shake this time. They scrambled, grabbing clothes, photos, shouting at each other. Jason muttered curses under his breath. My father kept insisting we built this family. I stood by the doorway, silent. Rain began again outside, tapping softly on the roof, just like the night they shut me out. When the last box hit the porch, the officer handed me a report number and nodded. You did the right thing, ma'am. The door clicked shut behind them. The house was quiet again, mine again. I exhaled and looked around, scuffed floors, crooked frames, rain streaks on the window. It had never felt so safe. Later, the police confirmed charges against my father and Jason, breaking and entering, trespassing. They both pled guilty, received suspended sentences, probation. The restraining order kept them 500 feet away. Justice didn't roar, it whispered. And in that silence, I finally heard peace. Months passed. The garden bloomed again, wild and bright. I built a small swing under Grandma's oak tree, the one she planted decades ago. One evening, while Ryan cooked inside, my phone rang an unknown number. Maya. My mother's voice trembled. I heard you got married, and that you're expecting. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then softly, thank you. When the call ended, I looked up at the fading light. The same rain that once drowned me now watered everything I'd grown. Peace finally felt like home.